The sun rose as a hazy smear over the seething sea, and the 100 remaining stories of First Light Tower blushed copper where they speared from the water. Below that glimmering line, the rest of the tower, another 100 floors of concrete, glass, and drowned memories, lay hidden beneath tides that had swallowed continents. Bridges that once linked First Light to the rest of the skyline were long gone, snapped like dry twigs by storms. Yet on wind-whipped platforms, in jury-rigged shanties lashed to elevator shafts, the last remnant of humankind clung like barnacles to a monument of its own making. Waves slapped the walls with ceaseless impatience, as though reminding everyone how thin the margin between survival and erasure had become. Kyle Marin, 23 and thin as the cables he repaired, crossed a swaying catwalk strung between two skeletal broadcast masts. Salt stung his eyes, and his tool pouch thumped against his thigh. He had been apprenticed into towerside maintenance at 14, learning how to breathe new life into ancient pumps and fuse panels scavenged from half-submerged floors. His mother liked to say he could make broken things remember their purpose. That gift made him valuable, but it also earned him assignments no one else dared accept, ones that required descending toward the black, pressurized silence that awaited beneath the surface. This morning, his task was straightforward. Swap out a corroded wave turbine rotor in sub-level 94 to restore power for the hydroponic terraces. Yet, as he waited at the rusted service cage, Cale's thoughts kept drifting to the rumors that had drifted upward in recent weeks. Rumors older folk dismissed as ghost stories. Divers from the forage crew claimed they had glimpsed an enormous metallic structure, sealed behind reinforced doors, on sub-level 140, a place no one visited because the pressure there warped bulkheads and crushed watchful drones like tin cans. Some said the structure was a reactor, others a weapon. Kyle, addicted to puzzles, could not abandon the notion that it might be the relic of a plan humanity had once meant to use against the flood. When the service cage rattled to a halt at 94, he completed the repair in an hour. The rotor spun, and the lights in Terrace Row flickered back to full glow. Still, his curiosity tugged harder than duty. Instead of signaling for ascent, he reset the cage's destination rail by hand. With each groaning floor he descended, daylight became a memory. He switched on his shoulder lamp. Condensation trickled down walls that trembled with the pressure of 1 billion tons of ocean. Somewhere below, whale song echoed through chasms where boardrooms once overlooked city streets. The cage jammed at 139 where mangled debris blocked the shaft. Cale forced the doors and squeezed into a stairwell, drowned in ankle-deep brine. On 140, he found the corridor intact, oddly pristine, sealed by composite doors, marked with the faded insignia of Meridian Consolidated, a conglomerate that had once shaped national policies by sheer financial gravity. A biometric reader beside the entrance still glowed. Cale extracted a bypass key he had crafted from scavenged circuits, pried off the reader's panel, and coaxed life into dormant servos. 2 minutes later, the doors sighed apart, exhaling a stale breath of synthetic coolant. Inside, the hallway yawned into a cavernous atrium where machines slept beneath plastic shrouds. Cale's lamp pierced dust motes to reveal a vast mechanical heart. Concentric rings of turbines around a crystalline core the size of a cargo shuttle. Cables ran upward through armored conduits toward the ocean above. Across the deck plates, brass letters proclaimed Oceanic Mass Displacement Array Trial Unit 01. An adjacent console blinked alive and holographic text rolled, requesting password. He swallowed. The rumors were true. He spent hours piecing together fragments from onboard archives. The array, codenamed Aegir, had been Meridian's last attempt to reverse ecological collapse. Powered by quantum-entangled singularities, it could siphon seawater into subcrustal vacuoles, lowering global sea level by as much as 30 meters over 6 months, enough to reclaim drowned coastlines. But the logs detailed catastrophic side effects. Operating the array required staggering energy, harvested through entropic exchange fields that would draw heat from the biosphere, plunging affected zones into lethal cold spikes. Each displacement cycle would extinguish regional life signatures. Estimated collateral mortality per cycle, 3.4 to 5.1 millions. The engineers who built the device had projected dozens of cycles to reach target sea levels. They abandoned activation after governments collapsed and funding vanished into chaos. Cale powered down the console with trembling fingers. 5 million lives per cycle, multiplied who knew how many times. Yet on the ledges of First Light Tower, fewer than 9,000 people remained. The moral calculus twisted his stomach. Could he condemn millions unseen for the chance to save thousands he knew? He backed away, intending to seal the doors and forget. But the array pulsed once, like a beast sensing recognition. He emerged from the shaft hours later, soaked, exhausted, and carrying a data chip loaded with the array's specifications. Wind knifed across the Spire decks, and violet dusk bled into ocean haze. At Council Circle, 12 elders guided settlement policy beneath an awning of scavenged solar panels. Cale requested an audience. Protocol demanded that any pre-deluge discoveries be reported. Secrecy risked exile. So, as night lamps buzzed and onlookers gathered, he laid the chip on the table and spoke of what he had seen. Silence followed, thick enough to drink. Counselor Vera, silver-haired and sharp as a shard of glass, was first to break it. You understand what you're proposing? Mass murder for a hypothetical reprieve? Murmurs rippled. Our children hang over an abyss, Cale replied. One more century of storms and we'll be gone. This might push the water back, give us land to farm, ground to bury our dead, over the bodies of every soul left outside these walls, she finished. We can't wield genocide as a tool. Counselor Dane, a pragmatic former soldier, stroked his scar-flecked chin. Let's not pretend morality stands untouched here. We raid settlements for supplies. We dump waste into the sea. Survival stains everyone. The debate flared, philosophical daggers clashing. Some, weary of scavenging algae to stretch rations, saw the array as salvation. Others feared retribution from still thriving arcologies, rumored to exist on Antarctic plateaus. In the end, the council deferred judgment. They authorized Cale to analyze activation requirements, promising a formal vote within a fortnight. The schism that opened that night would soon split families and friendships like fractured hull plating. Days became frenzied. Cale and a small team of technicians descended daily to sub-level 140, cataloging coolant levels, inspecting containment rings, realigning focusing injectors. The array's complexity dazzled him. Its designers, anticipating centuries of neglect, had embedded self-healing circuits. All it required was raw energy. First Light's tide turbines and solar grids could feed only a fraction of that appetite, but records noted an emergency draw option. The life spin of living tissues converted into quantum batteries. Cale's heart lurched. That clause explained the death toll estimates. The machine literally harvested biological entropy as fuel. One evening, hunched over schematics beneath a guttering lamp, Cale felt a hand on his shoulder. Archivist Celine, keeper of pre-flood chronicles, looked at him with eyes clouded by cataracts, yet keen in spirit. Did you know? she whispered, that before the flood, Meridian patented algorithms to assign a numeric value to every human based on productivity potential. They saw people as ledger entries. Tell me, engineer, do you see any danger in using their device? Not technical, ethical. He swallowed. Of course, but if the alternative is extinction for us, she corrected, not for others who have found ways to live with the sea. The world did not end for everyone, just changed. Shall we change it again because we cannot bear our smallness? She left him with that blade between his ribs. While arguments churned above, the sea delivered another ultimatum. A hyper-cyclonic storm formed in equatorial bands, tracking straight for the ruins of the city. Predictive models showed surge heights capable of shearing the top 50 stories from first light. Evacuation was impossible. No ships could outrun winds that scoured steel. Panic snaked through the settlement. In hurried assemblies, advocates for the array seized momentum. We can activate a partial cycle, Councillor Dane urged. Draw enough water to blunt the storm surge. A localized displacement will spare millions elsewhere. Councillor Vera countered that partial activation would still cost hundreds of thousands of lives in the surrounding region. Nameless islanders who fished atop coral skyscrapers, floating colonies of orphans, merchant fleets that traded grain grown on drifting barges. Yet her moral high ground eroded beneath impending catastrophe. The council scheduled a midnight vote. That afternoon, Cale stood on an observation deck, staring at the roiling horizon where lightning stitched charcoal clouds. His friend Leo, a medic, joined him. If you flip that switch, Leo said softly, and the array sucks life from bodies, they'll die without pain. But what about those who survive coastal freeze, frostbite, starvation, disease? They'll suffer more than we suffer now. Cale turned. I'm trying to save you. Save our kids. Save them from what? A quick drowning tomorrow or a slow war with our conscience afterward? Leo pressed a first aid patch into Cale's palm. Whichever path you choose, you'll bleed. At least bandage the wound. Night fell. Overhead, the storm's outer bands began to scream, rain lashing tin rooftops. In Council Circle, elders and citizens packed the platforms. Cale presented his readiness report. Auxiliary capacitors primed, displacement rings aligned, tolerances nominal. Activation window, 2 hours before the storm's eye arrived. Then the council voted. 7 for activation, 5 against. Motion carried. Yet as gongs announced the decision, commotion erupted near the elevators. A group of dissenters, Celine among them, had sabotaged the main power trunk, severing conduits feeding sub-level 140. Sparks sprayed across decking. Without those lines, the array could not initialize. Chaos unfolded. Loyalists rushed to repair the break, while dissenters formed human chains to block access. In the melee, arguments twisted into blows. Cale pushed through, pleading for calm. You think violence will preserve our purity? He shouted. Rain hammered down, punctuating his words. If we tear ourselves apart tonight, the sea wins without lifting another wave. Celine, face streaked with rain and oil, looked at him sadly. The sea already owns us. Only our choices remain ours. She stepped back, offering no further resistance. Technicians spliced the conduits in under 30 minutes, but time bled away. The storm's vanguard slammed the tower. Metal groaned. Water cascaded through walkways. Kyle, soaked, sprinted for the service cage, heart pounding with the rhythm of crashing surf. He descended alone, no escort willing to brave failing hydraulics. On 140, alarms shrieked as microfractures spidered across viewports. He reached the control dais. The array's core glowed, hungry. A prompt, Hovered. Initiate cycle. Y in. He pictured faces. The toddlers who chased rabbits in hydro gardens. The elders who taught him the names of constellations that could no longer be seen through permanent storm cover. He also remembered the divers who traded seashell sculptures at barter rendezvous, laughter of fisherfolk on kelp rigger outposts. All would feed the same cosmic equation, their worth converted to joules. Floodwater burst through a side corridor, chest deep and rising. The tower might not survive the hour. If it fell, everyone here perished, and the sea swallowed the last echo of a species that once walked continents. Cale's thumb hovered above the console. He thought of his mother's words. Make broken things remember their purpose. Perhaps humanity's purpose had never been dominion, but stewardship, and stewardship sometimes meant surrender. He closed his eyes, inhaled brine-laden air, tasted rust, fear, and a filament of hope. Then he lifted his hand and pressed N. The console dimmed. Power diverted to bulkhead stabilizers instead, reinforcing plates with stored charge. The array's turbines wound down like sighs of a leviathan denied. Above, lights flickered as energy surged through elevator lines, keeping them humming for evac shuttles no one possessed, but which served as lifelines between platform neighborhoods. Cale slogged back toward the cage, but the stairwell had collapsed. Water surged, sweeping him off his feet. He smashed against a railing, pain flaring. In desperation, he climbed onto a maintenance gantry, ascending hand over hand as torrents roared below. Each meter gained felt borrowed from death's ledger. When he finally emerged on level 110, the tower shuddered, but stood. The storm, monstrous yet finite, crashed around them. The surge rose 6 meters, flooding lower platforms, ripping away storage sheds. But reinforced girders held. Daybreak revealed devastation, yet also survivors huddled in ravaged dwellings, shivering but alive. Counselor Vera found Cale hours later amid wreckage, his arm in a sling, eyes red-rimmed. You disobeyed a council decree, she said quietly. I did, he answered, bracing for judgment. She surveyed the horizon where waters had begun to recede with the tide's natural rhythm. Perhaps leadership sometimes lies in choosing what no vote can decide. We remain alive. We remain ourselves. She placed a data slate in his uninjured hand. Take it. Plans for elevated terraced farms. If we cannot push the sea back, we climb higher and grow wiser. Later, Cale stood at the edge of a twisted girder, looking over the endless blue. Clouds broke, and for the first time in months, sunlight poured between them, painting ripples gold. It struck fragments of glass in distant ruins, making them glitter like a million candles, lit for the dead and for the living alike. He realized the sea was not merely an enemy. It was the vast mirror of their own capacity. For destruction, yes, but also for reflection, renewal, and acceptance. Behind him, children's voices rose as they chased each other across a deck newly scrubbed by rain. Engineers already hammered braces into bent railings. Medics tended the injured. Archivist Celine recorded testimonies so tomorrow's leaders might avoid yesterday's hubris. The sea muttered at the walls, indifferent yet patient. Cale slipped the slate into his pocket and set to work, heart heavy, hands steady. Somewhere far below, the array slumbered, still potent, still terrible. Its silence was a promise and a warning both. Humanity had stepped away from a precipice not of waves, but of its own making. The ocean would remain, vast and unforgiving, but so too would their choice to live alongside it, rather than above it, to measure worth not in megawatts, but in moments of courage and restraint. Evening came soft and strange. carrying a lullaby of surf against steel. Lanterns bloomed across platforms, constellations fashioned by survivors in a sky that no longer revealed the old stars. Cale looked up anyway, imagining the hidden lights beyond cloud cover, and felt something in him align with them, remote, fragile, enduring. For now, that was enough.